Hello and welcome to the Election Corner on One Man Think Tank. Today I want to talk to you about Joe Biden's new pick for Secretary of Transportation, or at least his likely pick for Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg. Now, you might remember Pete Buttigieg from the 2020 Democratic presidential primary, where he ran for president. He was formerly mayor of South Bend, Indiana, and did not win, though he did tie with Senator Bernie Sanders in Iowa and came in second in New Hampshire. Overall, a very good showing for a potential, lack of a better term, nobody at the time. He also made a run for chair of the Democratic National Committee, but that did not work out for him, so naturally he ran for president afterwards. Now, according to a report from CNN, he is the front runner to become Joe Biden's Secretary of Transportation, presuming he is approved by the Senate. Now, I going through here is the usual thing of, well, overall he's a decent pick. He's not a bad guy. He's standard Democrat fare, and overall Mitch McConnell probably won't approve him. But we have to wait, and we cannot speculate for the future, especially with the standard Donald Trump has set with just using acting secretaries. Now, the overall, this pick, Biden could have done a lot worse, but I'm not pleased with it. You see, the Secretary of Transportation is one of a few cabinet positions that kind of is viewed as less of an actual, like, you make legislation and pass regulations, and more, you hand out the money and get a cool title, and thus you can be a more political appointment. It's usually the two big ones are really Secretary of Transportation and Secretary of Commerce. Sometimes everything else is basically like UN representative and stuff like that are similar positions. The problem is the Secretary of Transportation actually can be a very potent position within the right hands. And Joe Biden, being a guy who's very pro-public transit, especially very pro-trains, I feel could have made a more, let's say, aggressive pick on transportation as opposed to picking Pete Buttigieg. Now, Pete isn't a bad pick, and we'll get to him in a moment, why he's not a bad pick in a moment. But it is the most, I'd say, nakedly political appointment so far of his cabinets. Especially when especially when he, so far, has made very good picks, especially with DHHS, his potential AG seems good, Secretary of the Treasury, very strong people who can get a lot of stuff done with the departments they have. So, picking Pete, I think, was a bit more of a political move. Partially to reward him for dropping out prior to Super Tuesday, which is what allowed Biden to clinch the nomination. Now, so if we had a very pro one, we could see a much more well-funded Amtrak and a better split up of highway funds and grants going to a lot of, like, public transit development as opposed to highway construction. With that being said, Pete is not a bad choice. Like I said, he was a mayor. He was the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, I think, for 8 years. He is a strong candidate to pick because, well, starting off, he was very pedestrian-focused in his transit. He did not do much in relation to developing public transportation, but focused on developing a walkable downtown South Bend. I nearly said Seattle for some reason. South Bend. He focused on something he called smart streets, but is more commonly known as complete streets, which is, if you live in any major U.S. city, you've seen this development in some way, where it's a road with a bike lane, or a large sidewalk, bike lane, some level of grade separation between the bike lane and the street, or at the very least the bike lane is a sharply different color with, like, small barriers in the way. One lane, a middle omnidirectional turn lane, a lane going the other direction, some level of protection, bike, sidewalk, maybe parking. But overall, a much more mixed-use development for roads, which not only make them safer, but encourage people to cycle, bike, scooter, carpool, in short, not take the car. He also supported a lot of mixed-use and transport-oriented developments, including trying to move the South Bend Station from being two separate stations, one for the Amtrak and one at the airport for the South Shore Railroad, into a single Union Station right next to downtown to encourage, for lack of a better term, the kind of rebuilding South Bend's downtown and figuring the rest out later, which is the new approach U.S. cities have taken, especially as the exurbs become harder to fill with people, and younger generations, as well as older generations, want to move into downtowns. So I think we'll see his Department of Transportation pushing a lot of this pedestrian-friendly, mixed-use development build-out. A lot of bike lanes, too. I think we'll see some investment in new public transportation networks, but nothing that would be any way different from the Obama administration unless there is direct intervention from either President Biden or Congress. My one big worry with Pete Buttigieg as Secretary of Transportation, and this is one that people have heard a lot, during his time as mayor of South Bend, he did something that, so, the polite term is urban revitalization. The classical term is slum clearance, where you go into poorer neighborhoods and kind of kick them all out, destroy their battered down houses and build new ones, and sell them to people. This is a controversial method and is classically what gentrification was, and could result in his Department of Transportation prioritizing new projects in rundown areas, which was a mistake made by the Obama administration, too. For transit, so i.e. it's harder to do without getting backup from HUD, and I don't think we know who his HUD secretary would be yet. But we do know he could focus on mixed-use development in poorer neighborhoods, which could result in some level of slum clearance or things like that. So that's something that concerns me. But overall, not a bad choice, not an amazing choice, but a step in the right direction. So, with all that being said, if you like the video, click the like button and drop a comment down below. If you want to hear more from the channel, subscribe and notification bell as usual. And if you want to hear more from me outside of YouTube, I do have a Twitter, @OneManThinkTan1, the Roman numeral, link in the description below. And as always, and most importantly, have a wonderful day.